So there's plenty of exciting scenarios that could happen in this year's Rugby Championship, particularly with South Africa playing away from home at Twickenham in that last game and Australia playing up in Townsville. All these things come into the equation of who could win these particular games. As you can see, I'm getting really excited about it. And for those people who are new to my channel, welcome. It's great to have you here. We welcome rugby fans from all across the world on this channel, and the other thing that I do is respect everybody's opinion in the comments. So if you are going to leave a comment, which I hope you do, we're going to respect it and we're going to appreciate it. Everyone has a different point of view on a lot of things to do with rugby across the world. Now in today's video I'm going to talk about the Argentinian Los Pumas, the unsung heroes I think of world rugby, and they're going to cause a few problems in this year's Rugby Championship, and I'm going to explain why in this particular video. So let's get into it. So today I'm talking about Los Pumas. Yes, the Argentinian national team are going to be coming into this year's Rugby Championship believing that they have a really good opportunity to create some upsets. Now I know that the Los Pumas have a lot of fans around the world, and they probably are the second favorite team of a lot of people who are watching this channel today. So I'm going to talk about how they went last year, how they've been looking this year, and what can we expect to see from them perhaps in this year's Rugby Championship. So before I look at the Los Pumas' chances in this year's Rugby Championship, let's have a look at what they did last year, because I think there's some very interesting statistics here. Last year they played France twice and they won one of those games and they lost one. They played the All Blacks twice, they won one of those games and they lost one. They played South Africa twice, they won one of those games and they lost one. They played Australia twice and they won one of those games and lost one. Do you see the trend here? Yes, it's true. The Los Pumas are very good against the top teams in world rugby. And then they lost to Ireland at the end of the year by just 3 points, and that game was a cliffhanger. It could have gone either way in the last few minutes. So they also had a very comfortable win over Italy last year on their northern tour. So they actually, I feel, had a very good year last year. What we're not quite seeing from them though is the consistency against the top teams, and I think that's the thing that's going to elevate this Los Pumas team up to that next level, isn't it? They're ranked number 7 in the world at the moment. They've got Australia actually ahead of them, so I'm sure they're going to be gunning to try and move up into that top 6 and at least get atop of Australia during this year's Rugby Championship. Now let's have a look at what they've done so far in 2025. Well, they started off very well at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin, of course, when they bet the British and Irish Lions before they took off on their tour down under. And a lot of you are going to say, yeah, but the Lions, it was their first game and they weren't coordinated and all the rest of it. Well, the same for Argentina. They hadn't played any games either this year, and that was their first game, and they came out on top of that encounter against what I feel was a pretty good Lions team. And then Argentina went back home and they had 2 games against England, or shall we say what appeared to be an England B team. Well, a lot of people don't know, but the Argentinians didn't have their top players in that series. In fact, all of their top 14 players were rested from that series because Felipe Conteponi, their coach, is doing a very smart thing this year. He's making sure that all of his top players come into this season's Rugby Championship very fit, healthy and ready to go, and I think that's a very good management. Plus he also had the opportunity to bleed a lot of young players in that series against England. One of those games was very close, and in fact I watched that and it could have gone either way down in the last minute. So England were probably a little bit lucky to win 2-0 in that series, but they did play well in that second game, and there was no doubt about it that Argentina missed their opportunity in that first test match. And then after that we saw them play Uruguay. They had a substantial win against Uruguay, and I just want to say Uruguay is no longer an easy beat in world rugby. They're ranked 17th in the world at the moment. They're on an upward trajectory, and I'm sure they're going to do some good things at the next Rugby World Cup. So like a lot of the other coaches, Felipe Conteponi has just recently named his squad for the Rugby Championship, and there's some very interesting names. And don't forget, most of these players have had a very good rest, so they're coming in nice and fresh. So let's have a look at some of the ones that stand out for me. There's 9 new caps in this squad, so again Conteponi's doing a great thing, I think, by giving a lot of new players an opportunity against the best teams in the world. Now, most of the coaches have got the Rugby World Cup in 2027 clearly in their sights now, and they're giving some new players an opportunity throughout the Rugby Championship to experience rugby at that particular level. So I think that's a very good thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how many of these players Contaponi actually plays in this series. Will he be forced to through injury like the All Blacks are having to do, or will he actually just give them a go and see how they fare against some of the best rugby teams in the world? That's going to be really interesting to watch. So let's have a look at all the forwards that Contaponi has put in the squad. And I've got some standout names here that I just want to go through as well from this group of forwards. They include Oviedo. He's absolutely brilliant. This guy is getting better year on year, and I think he's going to be fantastic in this Rugby Championship at number 8 or loose forward. Then we've got Rubolo. He's getting also improving year on year. He's going to be a standout performer. Then we've got Juan Martin Gonzalez, one of the best number 8s and loose forwards in world rugby in my opinion at the moment. And I think he's going to be a standout star for Argentina at the 2027 Rugby World Cup. And then we've got Marcus Creamer, Matera, Montoya, and also Sclavi. What a bunch of great forwards they've got there, with Creamer being an absolute beast as a loose forward. Matera plays brilliantly as well. And of course, Juan Montoya, their captain, is a great leader around the field. And Sclavi, one of the best props that are going around. And if you didn't see one of his brilliant tries last year against the Australians, go back and have a look at it. It's nothing like seeing a prop open up an open play and going for a great try. And Sclavi did that last year against the Wallabies. So there's some of the forwards that stand out for me for Argentina from this group. How many of those are going to be selected in the first game against the All Blacks? We'll have to wait until next week when Contaponi names his first test team. Okay, now let's have a look at the backs in terms of the squad that Contaponi has chosen for the Rugby Championship. And what I've done here is I've had a go at selecting the back line. I think what's going to happen in the first test against the All Blacks in Argentina. And at halfback, I think we're going to see Gonzalez Garcia. He's been playing pretty well and starting to promote himself now as the best number 9 in Argentina. Outside of him, we're going to see Thomas Albanos, no question about it. Absolutely brilliant, a game changer, someone who can run with the ball brilliantly, but his tactical kicking is great. He's great off the tee. Don't forget he's left-footed as well, which brings another dimension to the art of his game. Then outside him, perhaps the man that's got the best name in world rugby, Choco Barris. He's going to be starting in the number 12 jersey, I believe. And outside him, his old centre pairing of Sinti. And those two together have been absolutely brilliant for Argentina, and I think they'll keep getting better. And perhaps an area where Sinti needs to improve is probably on his defensive areas. Let's see how they go against the All Blacks. And then on the wing, two wingers who can cause a lot of problems to any team. Esgro's getting better and better over the years, and I think he's getting really more confidence now in his game and ability. He's a big guy, he can run fast, he's got a great sidestep on him as well. Very, very dangerous. And then on the other wing, you've got Mateo Carreras, who's a little guy and he's got darting feet all over the place, and he's a speedster as well. So I think Argentina have got some real weapons out wide. They've just got to get the ball to them. And then at the back, they've got Juan Cruz Malia, who's one of the best fullbacks in world rugby, in my opinion. So this is a brilliant Argentinian backline. And when you've got someone like Santiago Carreras sitting on the bench to come on, then the Argentinians are stacked with talent. So let's see what happens in that first test match against the All Blacks. So that's the squad that Contaponi has picked, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these guys go around in this year's championship. And out of those younger players, who are we going to see getting an opportunity? Maybe in Australia, maybe that's when Contaponi's going to do it. We'll have to wait and see. Now, talking about their schedule for the Rugby Championship, I think this is really interesting to look at as well. Because if we look at the start of their championship, they're going to play 2 games at home against New Zealand. The first one next weekend, August the 16th, and then the following weekend in Buenos Aires, they're going to play the All Blacks for the second time. Now, I think the All Blacks are going to win that first test comfortably, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think Argentina, with most of their top players out for the last couple of games, they're going to be a bit rusty in that first game, and you don't want to be rusty against the All Blacks. So I think the Pumas are going to need that first game against the All Blacks to really get into their rhythm again, get those players back up to speed, and then I think they're going to have the better chance of trying to beat the All Blacks in Buenos Aires in the second test match. So I think that's how that series in Argentina is going to go. a very comfortable win for the All Blacks in the first game because they've had the better run-up to this Rugby Championship. They've had those tough games against France, and they're going to get a couple of players back from injury as well, which I think is going to make a big difference to the All Blacks in that first test match. And then after the 2 games at home, they're going to head to Australia, and quite an interesting venue for the first game. They're going to be playing in Townsville, which is in far north Queensland in Australia. It's going to be sticky, it's going to be hot, and it's going to be challenging from a stamina point of view. So it's going to be really interesting to see how both teams go in this particular game. But I'm going to earmark this as the game that I think the Pumas can win. I think after that tough 2 games against the All Blacks, they're going to be in full flow, and they're going to have their best chance, I think, in Townsville, which is going to be more of a neutral ground than playing in one of the main stadiums in Australia, which they're going to do in their second game in Australia in this year's Rugby Championship when they go to Sydney and play in Allianz Stadium against the Wallabies down there. And I think the Wallabies are going to be able to win that game. So I'm picking that the Argentinians are going to travel well in that first game in Townsville, and they're going to have an opportunity, I think their best opportunity in Australia, to win that particular game. And then it's on to the World Champions, and it's going to be an interesting one here as well because they've got 1 game in South Africa at Kings Park in Durban, and then they're going to head to London to Twickenham to play their final game. And again, I think the Pumas have got their best chance by playing the Springboks in Twickenham, and when they're away from their adoring fans, although they're going to have thousands of South Africans turn up to Twickenham, of course, but so are Los Pumas. And as we've seen already this year, when the Pumas travelled very well to Ireland to beat the British and Irish Lions, I think if they're going to have any chance of beating the Springboks this year, it's going to be in that game in Twickenham. Now I'm putting the Pumas down as one of the best travelling teams to win away from home, and if you have a look at the record that I've put together here over the last 3 years, you'll see how they've exactly done that. In 2022 they beat the All Blacks away from home. In 23 at the Rugby World Cup they had good wins against Samoa, Chile, Japan and Wales. And then last year, of course, they won against New Zealand, South Africa and Australia, all away from home. And they beat the British and Irish Lions this year away from home. So 9 wins away from home in the last 3 years. And I think that sets up the Pumas for a very good opportunity to win on the road this year. Now, are they going to be able to cause an upset at home against the All Blacks and maybe win 2 of those games? I think we're pushing it too far to expect that. But I think they've got their best chance in the second game. And also at Kings Park in Durban, I don't think they're going to have much joy there against the world champions, but they've got more chance against them in London at Twickenham. I like what Felipe Contepomi has been doing with this team, but a little bit like Joe Schmidt with the Australians, I think we need to see Argentina really kick on now to get up into that top 6 of world rugby, and that's what I think they'll be gunning to do throughout this year's Rugby Championship. They'll also be looking to go one better than last year in their 3 winning games. They'll want to go for 4 this year. Where that's going to happen, it could be that second game in Australia. Could they end up winning 2 games in Australia? I think it's going to be very close between the Wallabies and Argentina this year. And it's going to probably come down to something like injuries, because the Wallabies already are going to be decimated before they go to South Africa. And if they pick up more injuries along the way, then by the time they get back home to play the Argentinian Los Pumas, they might be in a bit of trouble in filling some of those key positions. So we have to wait and see how they go. But there's a lot of standout players, as I've mentioned, in this Los Pumas team. They get me excited. They love to play an open running game of rugby, and I think they're getting a crop of forwards together now who are able to get in there and win the ball and win it significantly fast to allow Thomas Albanos to do his stuff in the back line. So watch out for the likes of Crema, Matera and Gonzalez. I think they're going to be the keys to this Argentinian team in the Rugby Championship in 2025. Let me know in the comments if there's other players in the Argentinian team that stick out for you, and some of these new names, who can we expect to stand up from them and be given an opportunity in this year's competition. You know, I keep saying it on the channel here that on any given day, the teams in the top 7 or 8 in World Rugby can beat each other. They're going to be very close games. There could be a few blowout games like we saw Argentina thrash the Wallabies last year. But in that first game, it was a 1-pointer. So are we going to see swings and roundabouts like that again in this year's competition? As I said, I'm expecting the All Blacks to win that first game next weekend in Argentina. That could be a bit of a blowout. And then Argentina gets their act together in the second game and fights for it and perhaps wins it. So there's plenty of exciting scenarios that could happen in this year's Rugby Championship, particularly with South Africa playing away from home at Twickenham in that last game, and Australia playing up in Townsville. All these things come into the equation of who could win these particular games. As you can see, I'm getting really excited about it. So there we go. There's my rundown on Los Pumas and what we can look forward to. I think they're going to be dangerous in this year's Rugby Championship, as they were last year. And let's see whether they can actually step up and win 2 games against some of these top nations in World Rugby. I'd love to hear your views and opinions. If you're watching in from Argentina today, hello, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I'm a huge fan of your rugby team, and I want them to have lots of success this year, as I'm sure the 45 million people in Argentina also want the same thing. Okay everyone, that's it for this particular video. Now make sure you stick around. As you can see, I'm making a lot of build-up videos to this year's Rugby Championship competition, talking about all the different teams and different dimensions and all the topical news that's going on. Australia's getting smashed with injuries now before they head off to South Africa, so I'll give you an update on that in the next couple of days, and we'll talk more about some of the other news that's coming out of World Rugby as well, as we get ready for this year's super exciting Rugby Championship competition. It's time for me to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. I'll be back soon again with another video in this series. Please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like and a thumbs up, and I'll see you again really soon. Until then, keep safe, keep well, keep enjoying your rugby across the world, and it's time to say bye for now. See you later everyone.